You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, Voss is Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. The Our Lady Season that makes you official. Welcome to the big show. As always, the Chris Voss Show is a family that loves you. It doesn't judge us harshly because you're here to improve your quality of your life, learn things, and expand your mind. Be sure to further show your family, friends, and relatives. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, youtube.com/Chris Voss, facebook.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss. Today we have an amazing young man on the show returning, and we're going to be talking about his book called God's Existence, Truth or Fiction, The Answer Revealed, out March 17th, 2021. Gary R. Lindberg joins us on the show. We're going to get into it with him and find out some of the details of what he wrote about in his book and his thoughts on this study. He is a graduate of the University of California, Berkeley, with a degree in U.S. history during the hectic days of the free speech movement. He responded to Director Sergeant Shriver's call to volunteer. However, after graduation, before being drafted, he started to apply for the Air Force until he received his invitation to join the Peace Corps. After his service, he entered the Navy. Instead of accepting his draft notice, went to San Francisco State University to get his Master's of Business degree with a concentration in management and personnel. He began a 43-year career in human resources and retired in 2019 to pursue personal interests. Welcome to the show, Gary. How are you?
Chris, I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for taking time to talk with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, and thanks to your for coming by. Give us your .coms. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
At GaryRLindberg.com.
Okay, so give us a 30,000 overview of what's inside your new book.
Well, the new book is the book we've already talked about, but the first book was God's Existence, Truth or Fiction, The Answer Revealed.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the book examines various sciences that I think prove the existence of God.
Hmm.
Now, I didn't want to write the book as a personal testimony why I'm a Christian. And I didn't want to, because I think other people would write something more significant and probably more interesting than my testimony.
Okay.
I also thought that I didn't want to write something about the teachings of the Bible, because other people have already written much more than I could ever think of and better. So I didn't want to tackle that. I was interested in finding a subject or a field of subjects that would be reasonably acceptable to many people, and that field of study was sciences. So I examined half a dozen different sciences, including botany, zoology, human anatomy, astronomy, chemistry, physics, plus mathematics, to find evidence that would indicate that God existed.
There you go. So you write about this in your book. Now, is this the first? I know we talked about what you meant, the newer book. Is this part of the book in a series?
No, sir. This is the first book I wrote. And then I wrote another book, The Vegetable Grows and the Lion Roars, my Peace Corps service in the 1960s. And then finally, more recently, I wrote God's Existence, Truth or Fiction. Deeper Thoughts for Greater Insights, because I wanted to explore some of the topics a little more thoroughly. And also I wanted to give some thoughts, some of my thoughts about the books of Genesis and Exodus. So I found that very interesting. And I thought that was something that needed further exploration.
Ah, there you go. more explanation and stuff like that. So in telling the story of your inside your book, how do you where do you start out? Where do you find issues with maybe how Christian uh, 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 assumptions about the Bible maybe might be incorrect or maybe correct?
Well, we've already discussed that. So the truth or fiction is a different focus, and
Okay.
there I'm looking at the different sciences where you find evidence that God exists.
Hmm.
Now, I might point out that I had basically three reasons for that inspired me to write that book to start with. And first of all, as I was growing up, I started having thoughts that other people didn't seem to have, and or at least didn't express to me.
Hmm.
And one of the, for example, I started asking myself, well, who created the Bible? Well, the answer to that seemed pretty clear to me that God created the Bible because he inspired various people to write it and to organize it.
Hmm.
Well, then I asked myself, well, who created science? Well, the answer to that was pretty clear to me too, because God created the universe and all that's in it. So he's created science thereby. And so then it stunned me when I answered the second question, because it occurred to me that then if God created the Bible and God created science, they both must say the same thing or something very similar. So
Hmm.
then I started saying, well, maybe the Bible and science are not contradictory like a lot of people seem to feel, including Christians and critics.
Hmm.
So they both say that there's a contradiction between them. And I'm starting to look and see maybe there's not so much of a contradiction that some people want to assume. And so that was the first factor that inspired me to write the book. The second factor was occurred when I was a sophomore in high school, and then it was time for me to take biology.
Hmm.
Well, and it turned out that I happened to ask a number of other students who had already taken biology what was required in the class, and what did they spend their time on. And the answer was that they spent a lot of time dissecting frogs. Well, that really didn't excite me. I wasn't too interested in.
Come on, you're not into frogs.
Yeah, the frogs are,
Sounds
let
fun.
them alone. I don't know. I just didn't want to cut them all up.
Yeah,
So,
I didn't want to do that either.
so the result was that I decided to take botany instead of biology.
Uh-huh.
Well, when I took botany, I learned a very important lesson. And that lesson was that all plant life, every piece of plant life, is organized in 7 levels of categories:
Hmm.
kingdom, phylum, class, order, down to the most specific level of species. Well, that was an interesting fact. I didn't know that before. But later in life, I learned that all animal life is also classified by the same 7 levels of categories: kingdom, phylum, or class, order, down to the most specific level of species. Well, then it struck me, my God, uh, how can that happen? All plant life and all animal life cannot happen by accident. It cannot happen by random, including evolution. There's only one answer. It has to happen by design. If it happens by design, that means there's a God.
Hmm.
So that's the second factor that inspired me. The third factor was that everybody kept saying there's no proof that God exists. There's no evidence for it. Well, I decided to find out for myself. So that's why I examined the different sciences I just told you about. And so that's I found that there's plenty of evidence that proves that God exists. All you have to do is open your eyes and think a little.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, the there you go. So yeah, let's delve into it further. I mean, isn't it possible that it could just be random? I mean, I'm just playing the devil's advocate here.
I don't see how it can be. How could it happen by random if it's that well organized? We're talking about very
Assuming it's
specific
organized.
levels of organization,
Well, I mean, we
and
can reverse engineer the organization, but wouldn't it be possible that it could be random?
I don't see how that can happen.
Okay. So what do you hope people are going to get from your book?
Well, I hope that they learn that there's a different perspective. That when you examine the Bible, you have to understand that it's been translated many times over the centuries. And I don't know how many different versions of the Bible there are. In English, there are a dozen or more. And then that doesn't include the different versions in different languages all around the world. And so when you have that kind of diversity of translations, it's incredible. You know, when I was in the Ivory Coast, I happened to listen to a song on the radio one day, and it was the L'Etoile de ma Maison, and that was the title of it. And it was a very familiar song, and I had to think about it, and then I realized, well, I knew that song from the United States. It was called "Green Green Grass at Home," sung by Tom Jones. It was the same song, but if you translate "Green Green Grass at Home" into directly into French, you have to say "Verte verte le pelouse de ma maison." That's not the same as "La toile de ma maison," which means the roof of my house. So when you're translating over centuries, you have to understand what the meaning of the real meaning of the word is. For example, I've determined that there's the word day has not been translated correctly. The word year is different. The word earth is different. What we have to do is examine what do those words mean 6,000 years ago or thereabouts. And I suggest that day, if you translate the book of Genesis, it lists in Genesis 1, chapter 1, it lists all the steps that God supposedly did to create the universe and the earth. And the steps are pretty well laid out, although, as I mentioned in our last interview, that I think there's some misinterpretation of by the writers of the Genesis that they didn't get quite the full inspiration from God, as if you will. So they made some mistakes, in other words. But the point is that day, if you translate the word day and you say, what is a day? Well, most people think, well, a day is 24 hours, right? That seems the logical conclusion, except when you do that, you translate it according to the perception of the receiver of the information, not the source of the information. And if you translate it according to the source of the information, that would be God. You have to understand that a God day doesn't constitute 24 hours. God is not a magician. He doesn't instantly snap his fingers and voila, we've got the universe, and voila, we got solar systems, and voila, we got different planets, including the Earth. And he didn't work that way. He took millions, if not billions of years to do that. And so each of those days are God days, not human days from a human perspective. So millions of years or billions of years, as whichever is correct, would be from the perspective of a human being. And so I'm saying that when the Bible says a day, it's also and science says dinosaurs lived for millions of years, and previous human species lived for many, many years ago. All that happened over a long period of time, which would be a God day. And so we have to interpret the Bible correctly. And a year? What is a year? What is the earth? How much did, I'll repeat myself from their previous interview. What does the earth mean to a person 6,000 years ago? Did they know about India? Did they know about China? Did they know about Australia? Did they know about North America? Did they know about South America? Did they know about Russia? No, they didn't know those things. So what is an earth? What does the earth mean to them? I would guess that it means the Mesopotamia Valley, the area of the land that they actually walked and knew. That's what the term earth meant to them. Now, we have a different perspective. And so we make assumptions that, they must be thinking the same way we are. And that's a false assumption.
Oh, wow. Yeah. False assumptions, folks. Don't make them. Yeah, it's kind of interesting how the world's working right now with gods and all sorts of existence and stuff. So you believe that some of the research you've turned over and found and stuff really validate the existence of God?
Yes, sir. Because, for example, when I wrote the book, God's existence, truth or fiction, the answer revealed, I looked at human anatomy, for example. You asked, there was a question that I thought you might ask about which branch of science, cosmology, biology, or physics, would offer the most overwhelming evidence, and to me, and why. And I would say those areas did offer significant evidence of the existence of God and do offer evidence. But the area that surprised me the most was human anatomy. And the point is, I studied the brain, the eye, and the liver as examples in those that area when I discussed those things. And the brain has 100 billion neurons, 100 billion neurons, and 1 quadrillion intricate electrical connections, which we call synapses, within the brain. And the eye itself has light sensitive cells, 137 million of them. And each one is independently connected to a cell in their brain, where the optic nerve transmits signals to your brain at approximately 300 miles per hour. That doesn't strike me as something that evolution would create. I can't see that happening. And then the liver filters the blood that circulates in the body. Now, why in the world would evolution create a liver? What you have to have a reason for doing that, creating that. There's no reason for evolution to do that, because evolution is non-thinking, not organized. But I'm saying that science shows purpose. It shows intent. It shows direction. That cannot happen. The liver would never have happened if that weren't true. And those incredible statistics I just told you about are so phenomenal that I can't see that happening anywhere.
Well, there you go. There you go. Now, in your works that you take and talk about, what was the personal moment or question that pushed you to write the book?
Well, there's no personal question to write the book, other than the fact that I wanted to prove that God existed, and I wanted to have evidence of that. And people said that there's no evidence. Well, I'm beg to differ with them, because I think there's plenty of evidence, and the evidence. And I even, besides all the sciences I presented, at the end of my book, God's Existence, Truth or Fiction, the Answer Revealed, I cited, I made a statement that God has a sense of humor. He put in his reminder to all of us that he exists, and that reminder was our senses, the five senses: taste, smell, touch, hearing, vision. All because every second of every day we are reminded that God exists. That's my example of God's humor,
There you
sense
go.
of humor.
Which branch of science, cosmology, biology, or physics, do you think offers the most convincing evidence to you?
Well, like I say, I think all those areas contribute to the proof of God's existence. But as I just mentioned, I think the subject area that uh, convinced me the most was human anatomy, as I just described.
Hmm. If a listener wants to take one concrete takeaway or aha moment from the book, what would it be?
I think it would be that we need to change our understanding and perception of both science and the Bible, because I think both have been misinterpreted and mistranslated over the years.
Hmm.
Uh, when I when I wrote the book, I wasn't thinking of it at the time I wrote it, but there are basically several assumption, or there's one basic assumption, I should say, that I used in writing the book, but didn't voice. That first of all, let me point out that in the Bible, it says that Jesus told his followers that if they see a dark cloud over the sky, they know it's going to rain pretty soon. And the American Indians, I used to track different animals, and for when they went hunting, deer, bear, buffalo, and they would read the tracks that that the animals left when they walked across the plain, and that's how they tracked them. And they knew what kind of animal it was because of the tracks, and so that gave them if they wanted deer, they knew how to follow the deer tracks. If they wanted buffalo, they knew how to follow the buffalo tracks. And even American frontiersmen like Daniel Boone or Kit Carson, who tracked animals, they knew those things too. There were a lot of frontiermen that used the same method that the Indians used. Well, archaeologists, they find fossils and they find old ruins of cities, and they create drawings or images of all the different animals that the dinosaurs. We have images of those things. We didn't know anything about it. How do they know that from just the fossils? But they're looking at, in other words, these are footsteps or footprints that have revealed other things, including villages and so forth. And they really show that the people that are there, what they were looking for. And I'm saying that God has left footprints in existence, which are amount to those things I've mentioned in science. And I think that's how we can. We don't need to have an experiment that defines that God exists. He left so much evidence that if we just look and think, we can see it.
There you go. There you go. Now, in your book, critics often say science can't test the supernatural. How do you respond to that challenge?
Well, of course they can't. Nobody can test whether God exists, but what I just said is that God has left footprints in human existence, but through the sciences, and those are ways we can understand that and find proof that God exists. And you don't need to have an experiment to prove that.
There you go. Well, there you go. What's the strongest counter argument you encountered while writing the book, and how did you answer it?
Well, I really haven't had any counter argument that seemed to make any sense to counter. I and my purpose was not trying to debate the issue about it. My purpose was to offer evidence that I thought proves the existence of God. And I did not write the book to scientific journals or even religious journals to persuade anybody about this. I wrote my thoughts and opinions and sent it and published it in a book, and have talked about it to different people about it in podcasts or in print. But it's all been in general circulation, not in actual debates with other scientists.
Oh,
not yet. Now, since my books are relatively recent, the point I want to make is that I don't think it has been out long enough for scientists to be able to want to debate it or argue about it. If I had written it in scientific journals, then I think we would have had a quicker response to it.
So no scientists or theologians have reached out to debate you yet or support your conclusions since published. It's still pretty new, right?
I think it's still pretty new. That's my thought.
Yeah. Which chapter was the hardest one to write? What made it so personal for you?
Well, for God's existence, truth or fiction, the answer revealed, none of the chapters were really that hard to write, because when I started writing, I made a list of topics I wanted to write about. And then I turned that the list of topics into an outline. And then I just followed the outline and wrote about the different subject areas in the outline. There was a challenge in the sense that as I wrote and continued to write, I started having thoughts that I missed this point, or I didn't say this sort of thing, or whatever. And so I added that to my narrative and finally finished putting it together. That's probably what was the biggest challenge for me at that time.
Mm-hmm. There you go. There you go. Well, there's challenges you run into when you write a book and you study this data. What do you hope young skeptics or curious believers feel after finishing reading your book?
Well, I hope that they understand that we need to think about the perspective we bring to the subject, and realize that definitions of words and everything have varied over centuries, and we're talking about thousands of years even. When we talk about the definition of different words, it matters, because in the book in the Bible, Old Testament was written in Hebrew, and the New Testament was written in Greek. But both Hebrew and Greek have words that don't exist in English, and English has words that don't exist in Greek or Hebrew. And sometimes words in Hebrew or Greek have several different meanings, and it depends on what how you translate it. Makes a big difference on what the English version is going to be, and or even in other languages. So I think young people need to realize that they need to be careful about the translations, and they need to be careful about the definition of the words. I think that the words need to be translated according to the meaning of the people who spoke those words 6,000 years ago, not according to our modern day interpretation of what we think is the right word.
There you go. There you go. So as we go out, what do you hope readers take away or listeners from this show? What's one action after hearing this interview? What would you like people to do after hearing this interview?
Well, I want them to read the book and decide for themselves whether it offers evidence or not.
Mhm.
And if they understand the points I'm making about the perspective and about the definition of words, I think they'll come away with a greater understanding of what the Bible, Old Testament, in this case, really shows. And I think that they will expand their horizons.
Hmm. There you go. There you go. Well, hopefully so. It definitely should interest people in their faith and everything else. Are there any other books you have coming up that you're working on?
Not at this time. I'm promoting the three books I already have, and that's a handful right now.
There you go. And more people. Give us the titles of the other three books so people have them.
Well, the first book was God's Existence, Truth or Fiction, The Answer Revealed.
Mm-hmm.
The second book was The Vegetable Grows and the Lion Roars, My Peace Corps Service.
Mm-hmm.
And the third book, the most recent one, is God's Existence, Deeper Thoughts for Greater Insights.
You had quite the experience in the Peace Corps thing when you wrote about it in your book. It was pretty amazing.
Yes, I did. And that was when in the 1960s, when Sergeant Shriver and John F. Kennedy created the Peace Corps. And I thought that was a challenge that I wanted to follow. And it turned out that it worked out pretty well for me. I had a great 2.5 years. I extended my service an extra half year. And because I normally would have finished in January, and I wanted to extend it to throughout the school year because my job was to teach primary school children how to more effectively grow vegetables in a tropical climate, and I didn't want to cut the year short by disappearing halfway through the year.
Mm-hmm. So that's probably important. I think more people need to do that. I think that's one of the things that we're missing in our society is youth that understand the world. And we don't have enough of that nowadays. And people just take, I don't know, everything for granted. I remember when 9/11 happened, I was like, what, people hate us? I thought everyone loved America. And I had to start learning about the world and what was going on in it and why there were some people that didn't like America. But yeah, the Peace Corps is definitely a way to open your eyes to the world and the world outside and other people's experience, and probably good for growing empathy as well. So
yes, well, I think the Peace Corps is wanted to help other people in other countries achieve their goals, and in the process, the Peace Corps intended for Americans to learn more about other cultures and other peoples, and but the same was true in reverse. By meeting Americans, young Americans, as it turns out, were an area for other cultures and peoples to meet Americans and find out that all Americans didn't carry guns. And nowadays it might be
different,
not quite so interpreted that way. But at the time, 50 years ago, they didn't think there was a concept that everybody was a cowboy, and we showed them that wasn't quite true. And they thought of America being a land of violence, and well, that kind of didn't work out quite as well as some other things. But anyway, the point was that it was an opportunity for a mutual understanding, and I in my school gardens program, I was thrilled that it worked out very well. That was not true for the rest of my group, who were still in the health education project that I was initially invited to participate in. They just happened to ask for some volunteers out of our group to involve themselves in an experimental school gardens program. The Ivory Coast was a former colony of France. So the national language is French. And there are a lot of French agricultural engineers and agronomic engineers. And so the Ivory Coast government was not really excited about having Americans come in and teach school gardens, but actually an engineer is not really interested in doing what we did, which is visit the schools and teach them gardening techniques. They have more lofty goals and expertise that we didn't have, and they contributed in other ways that were probably much more significant than ours.
There you go. There you go. Well, this has been super interesting to find out more about all this stuff. Give us your final pitch out for people who are up your book, wherever fine books are sold, as we go out.
Well, my book is available at Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com, or by the publisher. Dorrance is the publisher for God's Existence, Truth or Fiction, The Answer Revealed, and BookBaby is the publisher for God's Existence, Deeper Thoughts or Greater Insights, as well as The Vegetable Grows and The Lion Roars, my Peace Corps service. So those they can go directly to the publisher, or they can go to Amazon, and some other bookstores might be able to order them for them as well.
There you go. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show again. We really appreciate it and your insights and research.
Well, thank you, Chris. I appreciate the time you've taken to talk with me, and the opportunity to talk to you again. I'll look forward to maybe another time.
There you go. So, folks, order the book wherever fine books are sold, and God's Existence, Truth or Fiction, The Answer Revealed, out March 17th, 2021. Thanks so much for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTok and all those crazy places there. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next